Here we go. Here we go. We're officially live. Um, Thank you so much. Super happy for everyone who is tuning in now for our third interview in our Women's History Month series. And I'm very excited to welcome Annie Wang from Her Campus Media, who I've gotten to know a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Annie, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Esther. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, this is great. Even though you're not here live, like we've got a beautiful day here in Boston finally. It looks like it's really nice where you are.
It's beautiful in Miami where I am, yes.
Yeah, so spring is literally I think spring is today, right? Right around the corner.
Yes,
I'm so excited.
I believe so.
If you have watched these interviews before, my interviews with Rebecca or Veronica, I'm running through the same list of questions that I want to talk to each of our entrepreneurs about, just so I can get different perspectives from different people in various industries, because I find that fascinating that we're all doing the same thing and leading growing businesses, but like your approach and your philosophy and your outlook can be so different. And I love hearing unique perspectives. So
yeah.
So Annie, tell us a little bit about Her Campus Media in the context of the industry that you're in.
Sure. So Her Campus Media is the leading media platform for Gen Z and college women. And I started my business with two co-founders that I met in undergrad at Harvard. And basically this is back in 2007. We were running a publication at the time that was a print publication for Harvard College women, and reaching a couple thousand students there, but nothing too much. And we decided to transition that print publication to online. And once we did that, we really saw our readership skyrocket. And it wasn't just college women at our campus reading that publication, but it was really college women everywhere. So we realized that there was just this gap in the media marketplace for content specifically for college women and what they need at that point in their lives. So basically our idea was to, serve not only college women on our campus, but college women everywhere by providing this platform, the technology and tools to allow any woman at any campus to basically start her own magazine on campus and grow her own content and community in the process. So we entered the business plan competition for Harvard undergrads that year and ended up winning with our idea, which is really exciting. And we worked on it all summer. We lived together in this really small apartment in New York City. We had our day internships, but we were kind of doing this as our evening and weekends project together. And then we launched in September of 2009 with hercampus.com. And since then, we've grown now over 10 years to include other properties. So we made a couple acquisitions of other sort of like-minded publications in the college space. So we have College Fashionista, which is focused on fashion and beauty. And we have Spoon University, which is like all things food, all things college and Gen Z.
So cool.
And then we have a couple other things. We have our influencer network, which is Influencer Collective. And then our newest property is Generation Hired, which we like to call the Modern Career Center. So essentially over these 10 years, we've continued to hone in on the college demographic. And, a lot of people often ask us, like, what is the next step? What's the next step for expansion? Are you thinking of going beyond college? And the way I like to describe it is like, you can't be all things for everyone, but what we want to be is everything for college women. And so that's how we've kind of doubled down. And then on the revenue side, the way we position ourselves is as a full service marketing agency for the college demo. So basically working with the world's top brands that are looking to reach this highly coveted demographic that is, on their own for the first time and making purchasing decisions and establishing brand loyalty. So what we have is just that built-in audience. So not only the insights, the strategy, the creative, but also the platform to reach this audience directly. So we're sort of this agency publisher model all in one. And there's really not a lot of other people in the space like us. So we like to say that we don't really have a lot of competition. So we're looking to continue growing and just continuing to double down on our mission of serving and empowering college women in everything.
I love that so much. It's so crazy to think like just how quickly your reach can spread, especially because it's so many people, like all of these people need the same thing and they need such a broad array of resources. And so
Exactly.
we've been there too. Like we've been women in college. And so
Hmm.
what an incredible resource it would have been if I had had a way to connect like super broadly with people that were just like me or that like were facing the same issues or, like looking ahead at different, the same challenges, but different channels. And it's just like, I mean, it's incredible. And like you've seen your growth that is just validation to that point. So congratulations on
Exactly. Thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of our students have ended up using her campus as kind of like a career springboard for themselves, right? As we give them kind of this real world experience, whether it's journalism, marketing, social media, business, all of those different aspects. And, not something that you can typically get in a student organization. And we're able to encapsulate that and give really valuable experience while they're in college. So it's been career has been a really big focus for us. And that's why launching Generation Hired recently has been such a great addition to our portfolio.
I think I mean, I could talk about, like, I could segue down this path. I won't because I could go on forever, but like giving people access and a platform to speak to so many people. And now obviously like the influencer, like influencing can be a career.
Exactly.
So I mean, I just think about my kids and like the responsibility of teaching them like how to present themselves online and like the different career paths that you can take just being digital. It's
Sure.
like so vast.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so that is very cool. So you just talked about it a little bit, but when you and your partners, partners and friends,
Yeah.
were just kind of conceptualizing the business, what is one thing that you wish you could go back and tell yourself that you've learned now?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think, my co-founders and I started with no business experience. And, because we were students. And for me, actually, one part of my story is that I actually ended up taking a really extended leave of absence from college to pursue her campus full time, as my co-founders were a year ahead of me in school. So they graduated. We started seeing a lot of success in that first year when we were running it as students. And like, we wanted to do this as our full-time job, but I like still had senior year to deal with. So I ended up taking a leave of absence to do this with them full time and ended up getting my degree later. But I think there was, like, I say that because we definitely didn't have like real jobs before
Mhm.
going into this. We didn't have business experience. And in fact, we didn't even take on investment. So one of the things that we've reflected on as founders is just like, we kind of feel like we've run this like anti-startup compared to a lot of the way that startups are run today. There's a lot of things that we've done differently, right? We didn't take on any investment. We're totally bootstrapped and have really remained profitable since day one by just focusing so much on our bottom line and
Mhm.
making sure that we were bringing in more money than we spent, which is kind of funny, but it's not how all businesses and all startups run today. And so we sometimes think we're old fashioned in the sense that like, hey, a business should bring in more money than it spends, which is, yeah, it's just like such a funny thought. But I think, at many points throughout the career, throughout that trajectory, there were definitely moments like when we doubted, was that the right step to take? Like, no, not having investment, just launching into this kind of flying by the seat of our pants. But I think what I would tell myself is a word of encouragement that, you can do that, and you don't need to run a business the way that everyone else says that you should run a business.
Yeah.
Because here we are 10 years later, we're profitable, we're at 50 employees, we're growing. And I'm super proud of the company that we are running today. And I think just to tell myself that that is possible is something I would do, because you don't know, honestly, you don't know when you're in the beginning, and there's a lot of fear about what the future might be. But I think, I mean, due to many, many factors, like we've made it with doing that sort of like different model compared to a lot of the startups today.
I love that you would focus on the encouragement, right? Like, I love that it's like just telling yourself to like keep at it, go for it, believe in yourself, because that's so scary to like veering off the traditional path of taking a year off from school to pursue this like
Yeah.
crazy new venture, like some startup. I think that that's so important, because it's not like like you just said, that might not be the path that everyone takes. Like focusing on like more money in, less money out is very traditional. But I talked last week with Veronica about like cash flow, for example. Like I have a
Yes.
degree in finance, and it's about like you emphasize the bottom line. Like that felt intuitive and like the right move for you. But there are certainly other businesses that like operate at a loss until they can get to a certain scale. How long is that sustainable? So that's really great that you were able to stick with it, that your parents support you, had a support system that was like, yeah, go for it.
I did. I mean, I credit my parents every single day because that is a really, I mean, putting myself in their shoes, I think that's hard. Like, you've gotten your daughter to Harvard and like she suddenly wants to not graduate right now. I think it was really, it was really encouraging and obviously extremely empowering to have that support from them. I wouldn't be able to, I don't think her campus would be where it is if I didn't take that year off, or rather several years off to work on the business. So
wow,
absolutely.
So you've talked about the size of your business now, like 50 employees is incredible. That is a lot. And I know that 50 actually is a threshold number, especially here in Massachusetts. So no matter the size of your business, no one can do everything alone. Like you just can't. So what were the first positions that you hired, and how has your staffing model changed over the years?
Yeah. So I think, so first of all, we worked on the business. It was just the three of us doing everything for a little over a year. And again, we were full-time students also. So it was kind of juggling that. And at the time, we were just figuring it out, like doing literally everything. The glamorous, the not so glamorous, most things were not glamorous at that point. I remember, it was literally everything. And it was really fun. And I think it gave us a deep understanding of all aspects of the business. So we definitely ran for quite a while with just the three of us. And that really allowed us to understand every aspect and understand what needed to be scaled. So about a year and a half in, we made our first hire, and that hire was an account manager. So essentially to run the client campaigns that were our source of revenue. And that freed up my co-founder, Windsor, to be able to focus more on sales and continue bringing in revenue. So I think hiring in the very, very beginning was just about like, okay, we're all wearing all these hats. What are some of the hats we can take off so that we can continue growing on, what the business needs at this moment and what we uniquely can do. And then our second hire was one of our star campus correspondents, which is a student chapter leader from Boston College. And she was our intern as well. And we brought her on full time to run our community, since the community is really the DNA, the heartbeat of her campus. And then our third hire ended up being also someone who was an intern for us, who also was wearing a million hats and just proved herself to be really capable. And in the beginning, you do kind of need those generalists who can do everything and really just be fired up about your mission and just do whatever is needed for the business. So we ended up being able to hire her through some grant money that we received through winning Mass Challenge, which is one of the cool business accelerators that's actually based in Massachusetts. So I'm sure you know them. Yeah. And I guess, over the years, I think it's been interesting. The staffing model definitely has changed. And one of the things that we have always fluctuated between is generalist versus specialist. And even within a department, like you talk about a designer, do you hire a designer that can do all types of design, graphic design, illustration, motion, video, web design, UX, or do you start getting specialized there? And I think we've gone back and forth, and you kind of I think that's natural. You just have to be reactive and responsive to what the business needs are at that time. And then I think one of the other things that's unique about our business, like I said, we're so focused on profitability and, growing really intentionally, that there have been moments where the business feels a little lopsided, like maybe we have too many salespeople relative to the sort of product and internal team, or maybe too many of those and not enough sales. So I think the balance of that and the push and pull have represented inflection points in the business that we have to pay attention to. And it's like the growing pains, but you just gotta you got to be present in the moment and just respond to what the business needs, what your employees need. and what ultimately best for growing at that time. So definitely lots of changes through the years.
Yeah, we've had we have one employee, for example, who like has done almost every job we have at Trillium, and so
Yeah.
that's saying a lot now because we have a very diverse business operation. But one of the things that we try and do is create opportunities for like education and growth internally, because I think that's so cool. Because you're right, there are points in time in the business's lifespan that your needs are changing. Like whatever it is that is now new in either the business or the industry, you have to adapt to that. And so sometimes it is internal management and resources. Sometimes it is, more people for, at least for us, like, front of house hospitality. And so allowing the space for people to learn about things that they're interested in, or try and just like gain more experience. Like it's cool that you've taken on interns and those people then become part of your team.
Yeah. And in fact, I think we've had some of that too, of people like going from one department to another. We had one woman who was on the sales team, and then she, really passionate about client services, realized she wanted to be working on the execution of the campaigns. And she actually joined our integrated marketing team. And that was an awesome transition and like a great move for her and for the company too. So absolutely, I think that needs to be something, that flexibility for your employees and for the business.
Yeah, that's great. So kind of like switching gears a little bit. Now, we've talked about this, like we're going to lean into being a woman in business, even though it's just, why should we have to say that? So was there ever a time for you that you felt that you were in over your head, that you didn't belong? And how did you overcome that?
That's a great question. I have to say, I think I'm probably more fortunate than a lot of women entrepreneurs, just because media does tend to have a lot of women in it, especially our space, being specifically for college women and Gen Z women. We are surrounded by a lot of women. And I think that gives us a level of understanding and empathy. And so I don't think that I wouldn't want to claim that I've been faced with, the same degree of challenges that maybe some of the other people that you interviewed have. That said, I've definitely had my fair share of those experiences. And I think what comes to mind is like, I've just remembered some panels that I've been on, for example, where all the other panelists are men. And I just feel like we're not talking in the same sphere, or like, I feel like they're talking over me, or just not really, paying attention to what I'm bringing to the conversation. And I've definitely felt that way. But you know what? I think for me, those moments never bring me down. And because I feel confident in the way that I'm running my business. And honestly, looking back on those conversations, those panels now, I'm just like, are those businesses even still in existence? Like, you talk so big at that panel, but here we are, like same founders, 10 plus years later, profitable, growing. Like, let's talk in 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can prove yourself through just the success of your business and continuing to grow and persevere and succeed. And I don't think those moments have to bring you down or define you in any way. So I haven't, that has not been something that has been challenging or demotivating for me, to be honest.
So your strategy is just like, look forward, look ahead, like just be confident in what you bring to the table. Do you do anything in that moment to acknowledge like what's happening around you, or do you just move on?
I kind of just move on. I don't really draw attention to it. So I mean, that's me personally. I know not everyone reacts the same in those situations, of course.
Well, it's part of the same conversation of like, why are we acknowledging being a woman in business? Like, I'm on this panel because I am successful at what I'm doing.
Right.
Regardless. So yeah, it's a tough one. So you just spoke about it, but how being a woman in your industry impacts your experience. Like, you're surrounded by women in media, which is fantastic at times. Like, that must feel like a very safe and supportive environment. But has your culture, your religion, or your heritage influenced your business or strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question, Esther. And I think it's really timely,
Yeah.
actually, especially the cultural piece of it. Obviously, right now we're in, uh, a terrible moment, especially for the Asian American community. And, it's always been something that we have dealt with, but I think it's under the spotlight right now, and it has risen to really absurd levels, and horrifying levels. So it has been something that has been, more at the forefront of what I've been thinking about. And I think also in light of just the social justice movements, Black Lives Matter, like all of this is coming up a lot and is in the national spotlight in the last few years. And I think it has given me something to think about and challenged me, honestly, as a woman of color to bring that into my leadership and think about the ways that I need to be showing up for my staff,
Mhm.
as well as the community, and in ways that my colleagues who are not people of color may not understand. And so, how can I help bridge that gap? How can I make sure that my staff feels safe, feels seen, feels heard, as well as the community? So, I think it has been something that I've had to bring in a lot more when, before, kind of like the woman question you were talking about, like, why do we even need to talk about that? I think I haven't thought about my race or my culture as I'm thinking about it now and realizing so much is coming
Yeah.
up for me. Um, and so I think as a business leader too, it's been really interesting that a lot of what I need to do is actually turn inward in a
Mhm.
sense and like learn a little bit more about myself and my heritage, my history, my people's history, um, and really like be an advocate and be a leader and a speaker for this community. So yeah, it's been really interesting, and not I'm not one to really like the spotlight, to be honest. And so, but I think that I have a responsibility, and so I have to step up in the moment. So
I
yeah,
think that's so important for you to acknowledge, and thank you for sharing that. As a leader, like you said, you have a responsibility to both your team, your staff, and your community. But at the same time, it's like it's so personal for you. Like
yeah,
you have to, address and deal with your own personal issues and feelings, and then you have that additional weight, the additional responsibility of
yeah,
reflecting that for your team or for a broader community. Like it can't just be your own. Like it feels like um it's not a weight, but like it's a responsibility, like you said, to
yeah,
share more broadly with your team, with the broader community. So
yeah,
um yeah, I appreciate your perspective on that.
yeah.
Um
Thank you.
so the uh totally different, but like on a lighter note, I guess, like we talked about this kind of as a mom, but like as an entrepreneur in general. So my final question before we take a few viewer questions is Randy Zuckerberg's entrepreneur's dilemma. And
Mm,
it really does apply to any entrepreneur, anybody who works, like anybody who works and has a life. But I find that women are always asked this question. Um, so, as a successful entrepreneur, you can only have three of life's basic core needs, and those are family, work, fitness or wellness, sleep, and friends. So, do you ascribe to that? And if so, which are your priorities?
yeah. I think that Um, I think I do agree with this, and or I guess I wouldn't agree with it like just like blanket without caveating it, because I do think you can have all these things, but you can't
Mhm.
have them all at the same time. And I think anyone who tells you that is probably not actually giving like uh full attention to all of those things at the same time, because that's not possible. And the other thing is that I think people need to be honest about what is allowing them to do all these things. Like for me, I always talk about my nanny who takes care of my son when I'm working, and she is essential to me
Yeah.
being able to do this, right? And to like get any of these things. So I think we need to be honest about like what the support system is. We were talking about that earlier. And also my husband is incredibly supportive and will always step in if there's like something that, work does need to come in front of family for, on a certain day, he's there.
Yeah.
So I think that's essential. But I think in general, I feel like these 5 things, you might not be able to get them all in the same day, right?
Mhm.
And that's where I feel like what I've always done is just like try to prioritize and give my 100% attention to whatever I'm doing so that I can be like maximize my use of time instead of trying to like sort of multitask between these 5 spheres. I think it's worked better for me to just be like totally engaged with one of these and then transition.
Yeah.
But I think on a given day, I would have maybe like 3 of these at a time. Definitely
Yeah.
not 5, honestly, if I'm being totally honest.
I aspire to that. Like, I want to be, that is such good advice. That's something I struggle with personally, like, especially working with my husband, like family, home, business, it's all the same. And
Yeah,
so it's
totally.
hard. I have such a hard time being 100% in the moment in what I'm doing. And it's something I like actively work towards.
Yeah.
But I need to do better myself because I want to have all those things, but I definitely don't, at least not at one time.
Yeah, the
Um,
all at one time, I don't think can happen for anyone, honestly.
Such a challenge. And if anybody has the secret, please share.
Yes, please do.
So we have some viewer questions, so I'm going to throw them out there. From Ashley T. How do you feel about cross-training for your staff, which we were talking about? How do you grow skills with your best team members? So what's your approach to that, Annie?
Yeah, I think that so we do cross training, and a lot of that ends up being staff led, which
Mhm.
I think is really great because it gives staff a greater sense of ownership over the training, and people want to be there to support their colleague and end up feeling engaged in that as well. So we do a lot of those sort of like cross team lunch and learns and things like that, just going over like the process. This is why I do it. And even if it's not something that's directly applicable to that other person's work, it's always helpful to have context into the way that, your colleague is working, and it gives you greater empathy too for what they're doing. And then in terms of growing skills with the best team members, a lot of that is just by throwing them in there. And it's the
Mhm.
same as like me throwing myself in the deep end as an entrepreneur. We always say at her campus that all of our all of our team members are entrepreneurs. And I
Mhm.
truly believe that is the case. Like we really empower each person to take on their own projects, pitch their own ideas and run with it. And I think that's the best way for anyone to grow in their skills is like simply by doing. And we've had to do a lot of that this year or in the past year, actually, with like, I mean, COVID has totally disrupted many, many businesses, and we're not an exception. We work with college students on college campuses, and they're all remote, right? So, one of the just like quickly a funny story is that we had like this campaign, and we were going to do this whole like cross country tour with this mobile bus, and we already made the bus and we already spent all the money making the bus, and then like we couldn't do it. So what are you going to do? So we had to pivot like that last amount of budget that we had and did this like amazing virtual experience for our client. They were super
Wow.
happy, amazing results. And it just like, I think when the going gets tough, the tough get going is kind of how
Yeah.
I think about that. And those are the moments that are growing skills. And those are the moments that your company is really going to innovate and grow, as well
Wow.
as your team members. So
What do you do with the bus?
honestly, I don't know. Our production company just still has it. It's
Okay.
beautiful. Maybe we can use it in the future,
I
but
can't wait
yeah,
to see that someday.
yes.
So we have a bunch of questions here. So I'm gonna keep asking you if anybody wants to hear my answers to that. Happy to DM on Instagram later or respond in comments and LinkedIn, whatever. Okay, so from Liz C, what projects at your respective companies are you working on that you're excited about?
Perfect. Okay, great question, Liz. I am really, really excited about. Mention 2 things. So one of them is that we are redesigning our main flagship website, hercampus.com. So this is, as you can imagine, a massive task, redesigning and replatforming. So migrating all of that content and, our chapters, our users, everything. So
To that.
massive, massive
It's a
project.
big deal.
It's a big deal. It's a very like sort of technical and
Yeah.
like a little bit of a nerdy like project for me to dig my teeth into, but I love it. And the other big project is Generation Hired. So I already mentioned that we launched it late last year. And really, we think of Generation Hired as like the modern career center, because let's be honest, like who actually utilized their career center in college? I know I didn't, and I know many of my, many of my classmates did not either. So we really wanted to modernize that and provide again, like a career focused platform, content, events, intimate sessions with industry experts, how-tos, and all these resources about landing your first job and your dream job or internship. So that's one thing that we just launched and we're continuing to build out that I'm really, really excited about. So
that's exciting. Do you have like a how long was this project in the works, and how long before like full integration?
Yeah, so it actually was conceived in the middle of 2020. So it was really a very short turnaround. And honestly, like the reason we launched this project and kind of the impetus was, again, what we were seeing with the pandemic and, campus recruiting being totally disrupted, right? Companies trying to get on campus, talking to students, that can't happen anymore. So we wanted to come up with a way to provide that value for students and for companies. And so that was a lot of the impetus for Generation Hired. And actually, I'm going to brag a little bit because we ended up actually winning last week. We were named to Fast Company's Most Innovative Companies of 2021. And they cited Gen Hired, as well as this other really cool program we did, I'm Still Graduating, a virtual commencement ceremony for seniors graduating again virtually. And it's like all these things that are like, that wouldn't have happened except that the pandemic happened. So it's not only in spite of the pandemic, it's like because of the pandemic. And that's why I say it's in these moments of crisis that can actually be the most innovative and fruitful for you as a company. And that's certainly been true for us.
That is definitely true for us as well. I love that. So I saw that, and congratulations. That is so exciting. But what an opportunity. Like that is something that, there's so many businesses that just like we're not able to make it through, and it's not for necessarily lack of trying, but they're like innovative moments like that, like a complete pivot or adaptation to your business model, like that creative thinking and having the resource and the bandwidth to be able to invest and commit in it. It was life-changing for like so many, but for us, we pivoted and started a delivery service, like started doing online beer sales, and it's kind of that ingenuity. And then the support system to be able to make it possible. Like we wouldn't have done that without the team that we have.
Exactly.
Those are some shining moments and like just a complete dumpster fire.
Yeah, exactly. You will always remember that last year for the bad, but also the amazing things that happened out of it.
That's some of the things that we're trying to there definitely was so much bad. And as we are like making our reopening plans, we're trying to find the good in it so that way we can force it with our team and hopefully bring it forward.
Absolutely.
So we have one more question here, which I love. It's a great one to kind of cap off the end of our afternoon. From Marin E. What do you do to relax or to energize?
Oh my gosh. Well, Esther, you and I chatted about this, so I guess I have to talk about this.
Promote your Etsy store.
Yeah. So in quarantine, like many of you, I picked up a new hobby, and this was so I actually had my first child in quarantine, born April 1st. So he's an April Fool's baby, definitely a quarantine baby. And I was just like, I've been very inspired by him, and coming out of the fog of like the first couple months, I just really wanted to do something like around this beautiful period of his life. And so I ended up learning how to create pacifier clips and baby rattles and teething toys. And it's been like honestly so relaxing for me to just like make those cute little, toys, gifts for my friends' babies, and ended up starting an Etsy store. So it's called Babe and Bobble.
Wait, I'm sorry. I spoke over you. Say that again, please.
The name of the Etsy store is Babe and Bobble. And yeah, no, it's been very fun for me to just do something with my hands and just, I think it's great to do something with your hands and be able to think at the same time. So it's just like de-stressing, but also like a time to process and just,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been life-giving for me, honestly.
I think that's incredible. We did talk about that. I'm so excited to see how this goes for you. And I cannot wait for some of my friends to have babies so I can buy them some gifts. But yeah, it's like, I don't think of myself as a creative person generally. Like, I'm definitely the business person behind Trillium. My husband is the creative. But I've been making chunky blankets and I'm loving it. And
I love that, Esther.
I love it so much. My team is so sick of hearing about it. I'm like, I'll make the blankets to stage our photos. Everybody can get a chunky blanket for Christmas and Hanukkah, whatever. Like, chunky blankets for everybody.
That's amazing. Chunky blankets everywhere.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll go by the wayside this summer, but like for now, I'm really enjoying it. So, Annie, this has been so great chatting with you. I hope everybody has enjoyed this series and my time with Annie so far. Thank you for your questions. So I will respond to questions, comments on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I hope you'll tune in next week when I'm with Michelle Figueroa from Good News Movement for my last interview of this month. But Annie, I hope we stay in touch. Thank you so much for joining us. And best of luck with like everything coming up this year.
Thank you so much. You too.
Great. Talk to you soon.
Bye.